Hello guys, you're welcome to another tutorial on Sew with Abby channel. In today's video, I'll be sharing how to cut and sew this short with front wrap and side belt. This tutorial is detailed and beginners friendly, so if this is what you are interested in, keep watching. Let's get into the video. For this tutorial, here are the materials I'll be working with, and for my fabric I have African print here, which is 2 yards. And the first thing I'll do is to fold a part of it into two, as I'll be cutting the front piece of the short first. Now my fabric is folded into two, and the amount folded is my round hip divided by 4 plus extra inches for allowance. At the top of my fabric, I'll draw a straight line which will serve as the starting line or the waistline, and from there I'll take my vertical measurements. Now this short will have band, and the length of the band is 1.5 inches. I'll take out that 1.5 inches from each of my vertical measurements. So my tape is exactly 1.5 inches on the starting line. My first vertical measurement is my hip line, which is 10 inches. Next is my crotch depth. To get that, I will add 1.5 inches to that my hip line measurement, making it 11.5 inches. Then I will determine how long I want this short to be. I want it long by 18 inches plus extra 2 inches, which will serve as the hem allowance. Then I'll draw straight lines across. Again, this is the waistline, the hip line, the crotch depth, the full length, and the allowance line. The next thing to do is to take my round measurement. On my hip line, I'll measure my round hip divided by 4 plus ½ inch is allowance and 1 inch sewing allowance, making the total measurement there 11.5 inches. I'll take the same measurement on my crotch line as well as my waistline. Then I'll connect the 3 points together. Next thing to do is to get the crotch extension. What my round hip divided by 4 gave me was 10 inches. So I'll divide that 10 inches again by 4. 10 divided by 4 is 2.5 inches. I'll mark that 2.5 inches here. Then from that mark, I'll create a curve towards the hip line, like so. I will come to the starting line to take my round waist measurement, and I'll place my tape towards this side. My round waist divided by 4 plus 1 inch for that, I'm adding that to the short, and another 1 inch as sewing allowance. Then I'll connect the points to the hip line. Now for the measurement at the hem, what I will do is to deduct 1.5 inch from what I have on my crotch line to shape it a little. But if you don't want yours shaped at all, simply use the same measurement on your crotch line. Then I'll connect the points together. The last thing to do is to come to this side of the crotch line, and from the waistline I'll come down by ½ inch. Then I'll connect the point back to the top of the waistline. And guys, we are done with the drafting of the front piece. The next thing to do is to cut it out. So at the waist area, I was supposed to add ½ inch sewing allowance, which will be used to join the band, but I totally forgot. Please don't make the same mistake. Add ½ inch that will be used to join your band, okay? Now I'll set this aside to work on the back piece. For the back piece, my fabric is equally unfolded, and I'll set my front piece on it. Now notice the allowance at the crotch area and also at the upper part. The next thing to do is to extend the crotch line by 2.5 inches. I have exactly 2.5 inches here, so there's no need to mark it. I will just use a straight line to indicate the extension. And from that line, I'll come down by 0.5 inch. And at the upper part of the crotch area, I will mark where the front piece stops, and from that mark I'll go in by 1 inch. From that 1 inch mark, I will extend the waistline by 1.5 inches. This extension gives room for the bum, and note that 1.5 inches isn't the standard measurement. You can use below or above that. It depends on how big your bum is. What I will do next is to create the back crotch by connecting that 0.5 inch here to the 1.5 inches waist extension. And here we have the back crotch. So guys, the next thing to do is to take the back waist measurement. Now what I have on the front waist is 9.5 inches, and I'll mark the same thing for the back. So from the 1.5 inches waist extension, I will slant my tape towards the side to mark the 9.5 inches for the waist measurement. Another way is to replace the 1 inch we went in by from the front crotch area. Just replace that 1 inch and you have the exact waist measurement. Then I will blend this line into the hip because there's no other allowance that will be added to this side. Now at this side of the hem, I will add 1 inch. Then connect the point to the crotch extension. Alright guys, the last thing to do on this back piece is to add zipper allowance, and my zipper will be at the back. From the waist, I'll come down by 8.5 inches. Go below that if you want. Then I'll mark 1 inch as the width and mark that 1 inch all the way to the top. And this is all for the drafting of the back piece. I will go ahead to cut on the lines. Now that we are done cutting, the next thing to do is to start stitching, and the first part I will stitch is the crotch area. I will stitch it using 1/2 inch measurement, and for the back crotch area I will stitch the zipper allowance side using loose stitch because I'll still open it up to fix my zipper. And when I get this point, I will back stitch and use tight stitch to finish up the crotch area. After stitching the crotch area, the next thing to do is to hold that. Now I will mark where my dart will be. From where this stitch stops, I'll mark my bust span, which is also my nipple to nipple measurement, divided by 2, which is 4 inches. And from that point, I'll mark the length of my dart, which is also 4 inches. Then I'll connect the point into a straight line. For the width of my dart, I'll mark 1/2 inch on either side of this straight line. Then draw a slant line back to the base of the straight line. And this is how I will hold my dart to stitch. The back dart is not as straight as the front dart, although it's still the same 4 inches nipple to nipple measurement, but then our line will be parallel to the crotch line. You can see the way I'm measuring my 4 inches. Then I'll connect the point and also measure the width 1/2 inch on either sides of the line. The same way I will stitch the front dart is the same way I will stitch the back dart. Now I will notch the top of my dart. And after holding the dart on this side, I will hold on the other side as well. After holding the dart, this is what the front piece looks like, and this is what the back piece looks like as well. The next thing to do is to cut out the wrap for the front piece, but then I need to get my actual length, so I will notch the hem allowance of the front and the back panel. Then head over to the sewing machine to stitch, and this is how I'll be stitching it. I'll give the hem allowance a double fold, then run a stitch on it like so. So guys, this is what I have after stitching the hem. The next thing to do is to cut out the piece for the front wrap, and this is the piece for the wrap. You can see it's quite bigger than the short. I'll pin it together in order to cut out the exact size of the short. Now I will turn it to the wrong side to trim off the excess. I'll be trimming off the excess fabric at the upper part and also at the side. For the excess fabric at the hem, I won't trim it off yet, okay? I'll turn this back to the right side. Now this is not how we want the wrap to completely cover our shorts, so we are shaping one side. Now go ahead and determine which side you want to shape. For me, I'm working with the right side, and at the upper part I will go in by 3 inches, and at the lower side I'm going in by 6 inches. Then I'll connect the 2 points together. The next thing to do is to cut out the marked part plus folding allowance, and when cutting, be careful not to cut out your shorts together with what you are cutting. So this is what the wrap looks like now, and this is what it will eventually look like after folding in the hem. I will pin the fabric together and turn it to the wrong side to work on the lower part of the wrap. So guys, if you notice, you will see that a part of the wrap is quite longer than the short, so that is what I want to do now. I'll be trimming it to what it should look like, and while trimming, add folding allowance. This is what your wrap should look like after cutting. I will head over to the sewing machine now to stitch the hem and also the side of the wrap. Okay guys, at this point I already stitched the hem and the side of the wrap, and this is what it looks like. I will place it back on the short and set it aside to cut out the side belt. I already cut out the pieces for the belt. The length is 20 inches while the width is 4 inches. I'll go over to my sewing machine. To close this side, I'll stitch this side and also one part of the edge, and I'll do the same thing to the other piece. After stitching, I turned it right out, and this is what I have. The next thing to do is to mark where it will be placed. One will be on the wrap and the other one will be on the back piece of the short. So from my waist, I came down by 4.5 inches. Then I'll place my belt under the wrap and use pin to hold it together. And this is what it will look like after stitching. The next thing to do is to bring in the back piece to mark where the belt will be placed. Now the second belt will be placed at this side of the back piece. Now I'll measure the same thing I measured at the front, 4.5 inches from my waist. Then place my belt inside because this is the wrong side, so I place my belt into the right side, then pin it together. Now after stitching the belt, the next thing to do is to close the side. I'll close the side using 1/2 inch measurement. Alright guys, I closed the side and also stitched the belt, but then I noticed the back belt and the front belt did not align, so I decided to move the back belt a little lower, like 1 inch lower. Now the back belt is 5.5 inches from the waistline, not 4.5 inches. I will adjust it. After adjusting the belt, I will also close the crotch area. I will turn this to the wrong side, head over to the sewing machine to stitch using 1/2 inch measurements. I adjusted the belt and it now aligns like I want it to. I also closed the crotch area. The next thing to do is to work on the waistline. I want to attach the band. At this point, I already loosed the zipper allowance stitch like I said I would. Now I will measure around my waistline to know how long my band is going to be. What I have here is 32 inches. I'll go ahead to cut out my band. Now this is the piece for my band. The length is 4 inches, which is 2 inches on fold, and when I'm done stitching with 1/2 inch measurement, I'll be left with 1.5 inches, which I said my band will be. I also ironed interfacing to it. Now the next thing to do is to attach it to the waistline of my short. I notched the center of my band and also the center of my waistline. Then I pinned the notched parts together. Now my band will go around the waistline like so. I'll stitch it around the waistline and it will stop at the zipper allowance side. After stitching this side of the band to the waistline, the next thing to do is to use this other side to cover up the joining. Now if the other side of your band has a rough edge, turn in the edge and top stitch on it all around the waistline. Mine has a soft edge, so I don't need to turn in the edge. I'll just top stitch on it from this right side all through the waistline. And after top stitching on the band, I will also fix the zipper. Here I fixed the zipper and also top stitch on the band. And with that, we've come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching guys. If you find this video helpful, kindly give it a thumbs up, and if you are yet to subscribe to my channel, kindly subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one.